A topic that's been on the forefront of my mind for a while now is this idea of what happens when things don't go according to plan. It was greatly the theme of the previous episode of the podcast that I told when it was like our first few weeks on the road. And I don't want to give any spoilers away, but this is also a topic that I greatly explore in our new video series, Meant to Be, which happens to be rolling out on YouTube right now. This is definitely the place where you do a shameless plug for the other work that you're doing. So that's what's happening right now. If you're interested in watching that travel series that we made, all of the details can be found in the show notes, so you can check that out a little bit later. But this theme and this topic reminded me of another story that took place back in 2018. We found ourselves in Canada traveling in a 2008 Tacoma. In the months leading up to being there, we had officially called it quits on the van. I'm sure this comes as a shock to no one, but it continued to have issues after the story from the previous episode. And we just realized that we needed something more reliable that would take care of us long term. So we attempted to convert another old vehicle, and we sunk 9 months into it before we realized that it solved absolutely none of our reliability issues. Ultimately, at the end of that experience, I think that Owen and I had spent so much time dedicating our lives to just trying to make a vehicle reliable. And ultimately, we kind of realized that we had maybe weren't sure why we were on the road anymore. We had just completely lost contact with our relationship with the road. And so we just kind of wanted to be in the most reliable thing that we could come up with, which was a Toyota Tacoma. So we purchased it. We spent just 3 days building out a very rudimentary bed, so to speak, in the bed cap in the truck bed. It had 2 basic drawers underneath it. That was what we took up to Canada. And we went up there with the express purpose of seeing if we were still in love with being on the road. But we just felt like the most simplistic vehicles are the ones that allow you to focus on yourself and the experiences that you're having rather than the vehicle itself. We had been in Newfoundland for a few weeks, and the area had long intrigued us, and it was treating us really well so far. But in our research, we found that there was a fossil beach called Mistaken Point Ecological Reserve on the southeast side of the island. And the reason why it caught our interest is it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's known for being the world's largest and oldest concentration of marine life fossils from the ocean floor from over 565 million years ago. If you've been here with me for a minute, you know that this is the sort of thing that catches our attention and gets us really excited. In addition to being an important place for the sake of scientific understanding of the evolution of life on Earth, no big deal. It was also just a stunning section of coastline that we both really wanted to see. When we made the decision to go check it out, we were on the northeast side of the island, and to get down to Mistaken Point, it was nearly an entire day's worth of driving. As we neared our destination, we came to the realization that we had not done nearly enough research to realize that you needed to either book a tour or have a permit to access the reserve at all. And tours booked out weeks in advance. And so needless to say, we were showing up with none of the credentials that we needed to actually be able to see Mistaken Point. Obviously, this was a really frustrating oversight on our part. We like to be really efficient when we travel. We're not trying to be wasteful and spend a ton of time driving around, particularly on a route that was pretty far out of our way. And so we were looking for some way to pivot and to make the most of our detour. And that's when I suggested that we head to the capital city of Newfoundland for something that was actually really high on my bucket list. In St. John, which is the capital of Newfoundland, I wanted to do a screech-in. Okay, so now I need to figure out exactly how to succinctly put what a screech-in is. But I think that the best way to describe it is it's a satirical ceremony of which people do take very seriously, including myself. but it's a tribute to the history of Newfoundland and Labrador. And before I describe the proceedings of a screech-in, I do want to warn you that there's a great deal of slang, so bear with me, I will get into it. Okay, so a screech-in goes like this. A come from away, which is a person not from Newfoundland, recites an age-old saying, then eats a piece of bologna, which is also known as a Newfoundland steak, then has to kiss a cod, and then concludes the ceremony by taking a shot of screech rum. And as a result, you become an honorary Newfoundlander. Obviously, this is something that I really need to have in my life. I need to be an honorary Newfoundlander. From the moment I knew that this was a thing, I saw it on an episode of Anthony Bourdain's show a long time ago. I knew that this was something that I wanted to do. There are plenty of places around Newfoundland where you can do this screech-in ceremony all around Newfoundland, but there was one bar in particular that I personally had my sights set on, and it's called Christian's Pub. It's in downtown St. John, and it's the exact place that Anthony Bourdain did his screech-in ceremony. So we made the decision to head to St. John. We turned the car around, and we headed right back in the direction we had come from, and we decided to go to Christian's Pub to do our screech-in. When we got into town, we parked around the corner from the bar and locked up, packed everything up in the truck, and we made it all the way to the end of the block, and then something stopped me dead in my tracks. Owen and I are strong believers in gut feelings. I think that this is because we spend a lot of time in unfamiliar places. We just personally feel it's the best way to stay aware and safe in new surroundings. We've kind of come to have this no questions asked policy when it comes to having these gut feelings about something. And I think that what I mean by that is if one of us has a gut feeling and it just feels like something is off, no questions asked, we will leave. It's something that we've rarely needed in all of our time on the road, but I do think that it's a good rule of thumb to have. In fact, I think that in our whole time being on the road, I can only think of maybe 3 or 4 times we've had to use this, quote, policy, so to speak. But standing there on the corner, equidistant from both the truck and the front door of this pub, I was just struck by this feeling that we shouldn't leave the truck unattended. I just feel like it's a really hard feeling to explain, but I can just tell you that I didn't feel like I wanted to go a single step farther from the truck, even though I so badly wanted to be screeched in. And there was nothing in particular that tipped me off, so to speak, towards this feeling. And I'm not saying that St. John isn't safe. Maybe what I am saying is that you've been living on the road for a long time when the town that is literally the size of Birmingham, Alabama in population makes you nervous. I don't know. I turned to Owen and I told him that I was having this feeling, and he asked if I thought we should leave. I stood there for a second trying to debate internally why I was feeling that way to gain a better understanding. And I think that the thing is, we've been broken into before, and our vehicle holds all of our worldly possessions, our laptops, our camera equipment, everything. If we were ever to be broken into and a lot was taken, we'd be in a bad way. And it just felt like me wanting to go kiss a cod and take a shot of rum was not a good enough reason to leave the vehicle vulnerable in a situation where I was feeling like it was vulnerable. So I nodded to Owen. I was very frustrated, both with myself and the situation, and told him that I thought that we should leave. As we drove out of town, going back in the direction that we had come from that morning, I just sat there in silence, and it felt like a war was raging in my brain or something. I was so frustrated that we had spent the entire day driving, wasting gas, and doing absolutely nothing we had set out to do that day. I think I was also just really frustrated that I wasn't able to go through with something that I wanted to do, but I was also the reason we left. and then not fully being able to understand why I felt the way that I did that caused us to leave in the first place. Thankfully, Owen was able to find a place for us to settle in for the night in the tiny town of Heart's Content, Newfoundland. The spot that he found was kind of at the base of the lighthouse, and we were just going to be sleeping in the parking lot. After we parked, I got to work on making dinner. I was just feeling really ready for the day to be over. And while I was making dinner, a man drove up and got out of the car and started walking towards us. As this man walked up to us, I distinctly remember turning and looking at Owen and saying, if this man tells us that we have to leave, I'm going to freak out. But so as he approached, he was clearly very friendly. We got to chatting. He was very knowledgeable on the area, so we peppered him with all sorts of questions that we had been thinking of on the drive, very knowledgeable of the history. And so we kind of hit it off and are talking for multiple minutes. And then this lady gets out of the car that he drove up in. And she's like, come on, you got to hurry up. We've got stew on the stove. We got to get home. And he turns back and he looks at us and he was just like, hey, I'm the mayor of Heart's Content. I saw you drive in a little while ago and I happened to see that your plates are from Florida. You could be anywhere in the world tonight. But tonight, you're staying with us here in Heart's Content, and I just wanted to let you know that you're welcomed and we're honored to have you here. And then he handed us the crest of the city in pin form, which I actually still wear on my denim jacket to this day. And he was just wanted us to know, he was like, that's my house over there. If you need anything, don't hesitate to stop by. If you need water, there's a public spigot in this part of town. The butcher's up at this time. Tell him I sent you. And if you don't want to stay in this parking lot, you can stay in any one of our driveways as long as you're willing to get up in the morning and let us out so we can go to work. But he was just like, wanted to just make sure you knew that you were welcomed here, but I got to go. I got a stew on. As he turned and left, before he even made it back to the car, I completely fell apart, just like started sobbing. Because of just how incredibly kind he was. But also, he was right. We could be anywhere in the world that night. But that night we were in Heart's Content. Okay, quick story time. Back in 2012, Owen and I hit the road for 6 months. It was actually the trip that led us to the full-time traveling that we're doing now. But back then, we traveled with a cooler to keep all of our food cold. But as the ice melted, it routinely drowned our veggies, leaked into jars, and cost us what felt like a small fortune in ruined food. And on top of all of that, we had to buy a new bag of ice every few days. The process was equal parts frustrating, exhausting, and expensive. Thankfully, we now have a Dometic CFX5, which isn't just a cooler. It's a powered fridge and freezer that keeps food fresh, drinks ice cold, thankfully without the hassle of ice. The Dometic CFX5 line comes in a number of sizes to fit into any vehicle or camper. It's rugged, it's road ready, and adventure tested by me and so many other travelers. Stay out longer and eat better with Dometic. If you enjoy traveling and storytelling about traveling, maybe you'll be interested in our latest travel series, Meant to Be. The 6-part series follows our journey through Western Canada and the Barrier Islands as we check off our final bucket list destinations in North America. I don't want to give away too much, but I can say if you're listening to this podcast and you find some of the themes that we explore interesting, something tells me that you'll enjoy the series. You can watch Meant to Be over on our YouTube channel or on Patreon. Our Patreon community gets to watch episodes 1 week early and has access to a prologue episode for the series, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff too. You can find all the details for both of those shows in the show notes of this episode, and I hope you enjoy. After dinner, we walked over to chat with the other campers who were staying in the lighthouse parking lot that night. They too got to meet the mayor, so obviously we had a lot to bond over. But they then asked us what we would be doing the following day and if we had any plans. After regaling them with the trials and tribulations of our day, we kind of told them, so yeah, we don't have any plans. we didn't really think that we would be here. They told us that they had something that they thought we would like that would maybe turn our luck around a little bit. They recommended that we head a few towns over to the town of Trinity for something they called a pageant. They said it was the last one for the season, and it was tomorrow, and that we should go. And another theme that seems to come up in this podcast a lot is we know a good time when we hear it. So we decided to go to Trinity the following day for the pageant. So when we found ourselves in Trinity, Owen and I found the parking area and then followed everybody else down to where they were buying tickets. And we really did go into this experience with little to no knowledge of what would be happening. Because to be honest with you, I didn't really know what a pageant was in this output, so to speak. So we went down to the dock, and that's where we bought our tickets. And we found out that it was, in fact, the last showing of the pageant. But then what transpired was something I don't think that either one of us was expecting. So the pageant started with the actors gathering the audience into a little circle, and we all sang the Newfoundland anthem, Hands Over Heart, and then proceeded to follow the actors around town where the pageant/play literally took place all over town. We followed them on foot to different buildings, different parts of town. We were in the church. At one point, we were on the beach. At some point, furniture got thrown off the dock into the water. It was just this incredible and unique experience where we got to not only pay witness to, but participate in the story of Newfoundland and Trinity as a town. And as it turns out, most of the town participates in facilitating the pageant. And so we got this incredible experience all over town. And at one point, I was even sworn in as an honorary pirate and asked to participate in a bunch of the festivities along with the actors. But then at the end, all the actors circled us up. And once again, we closed out the show by singing the Newfoundland anthem. And I don't think that there was a single dry eye in the house. It was so moving. I think that it's one thing to sit and to watch a play unfold, but to involve the entire group in it, it makes it feel like it's your history just as much as it is theirs. Needless to say, it was one of the most memorable things that we did our entire time in Newfoundland. It seems like sometimes things have to go wrong for you to get to where you're meant to be. And I think that the hardest part in that is realizing when you need to let go and give into what's happening rather than what you planned on happening. We had spent the entire day before driving all over what felt like Kingdom Come because it put us on the path to where we needed to be, which was to get to Heart's Content. It was what had to happen to experience the radical kindness of the mayor and lead us to the town of Trinity. In the end, I think that we walked away with more knowledge of Newfoundland and its people and history than we ever would have if I would have just kissed a cod and taken a shot of rum. And I can tell you, I certainly wouldn't be an honorary pirate to this day. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you down the road.